Get out of here. I don't want to see you today in game number 1. If Jin Air lose, it's not going to be by the hands of Silas, which makes me happy. But the Jace does get banned here, which means that Jin Air are going to go potentially back to a champion that has lost 8 times in a row to maybe put the cap on their 18th time in a row.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day,
we'll see how it works.
Takes one to know one, feels like this lock-in, right? When it comes to champions that are struggling and teams that are struggling. I feel this is really high priority, but we can't evaluate it till we see what it's coming with. You feel like Kai'Sa and the Galio is the duo here, but the cost is Vladimir as a champion, which already you're like, uh-oh, that's a really strong champion, and Keen could potentially hard carry on that pick. It's right up there. Nagari already showed us in our first series. The Sivir is kind of a nothing doing at the end of the day. That's not necessarily a takeaway pick from a Galio lane. Like Galio Sivir can push, but it's not a amazing synergy. So let's understand. Maybe Jin Air just found success on a hard crowd control comp in solo queue or in scrims recently, and they're going to try and recreate that. Maybe it's about Jin Air's 5 pieces rather than the pieces available to Afreeca.
Well, Lissandra comes in here for, you would assume, Grace in the mid lane. He's definitely shown some inconsistency. Lissandra is one of those champions that you can hop on and just try to play defensive and survive in the mid lane, so I'm not too unhappy about that. And with the Jarvan coming in, you can see already that they're looking for that pick engage composition on the side of Jin Air.
You know what I want to see, Valdez? I want to see Camille top. I don't care about the 1v1 matchup. I want to see Ashe 80 carry.
Yeah.
Let's just have the easiest pile-on comp ever. And then you know that if there's mistakes, it's that Malphite, throw it in there. Who needs some awesome dudes in the bot lane? If you're not winning any games, you shouldn't pick a poke comp. You shouldn't pick a narrow win condition comp. You should pick a comp that's easy. So far, Jin Air's comp only does one thing. It piles on. It is absolutely getting in the dirt and wrestling with you. So seems like Afreeca going to kind of gleefully accept that because Vladimir Sivir are pretty good in a 5v5 too. But Jin Air, we're going to go with the KISS strategy. You guys can work out what that stands for. And Afreeca Freecs, see how they want to interpret this one. You can go disengage, or you can say, boy, we're fighting as well.
Well, you see already the Kai'Sa ban. Kai'Sa, one of those champs that the rest of your team is engaging. You just hop on in there and do a bunch of damage with good positioning with your ultimate. Yorick also taken away, so they give credit to Yorick alongside this kind of composition, which is kind of interesting.
Might just want to relieve some pressure from a Vladimir matchup. Maybe we'll just see a 4-1 comp and some crazy last pick that goes into the hands of Keen. Remember, with the decision to field Brook, their substitute top laner, it's much more about Keen's matchup than anything else. The only reason to go for a role swap mid laner when you have 2 mid laners in your team is to show a top laner and then have a top laner be able to play it in an off lane and get Keen the matchup he wants. Otherwise, I really hate the decision to go with 2 top laners. So let's see if we can understand it fully with their final overall pick. They will not pick their second solo laner to last pick on red side. Again, it would negate their strategy if they did.
Tristana immediately comes in here. This is kind of interesting. Rook gonna hop onto this pick alongside an Aatrox. That should be hopping into the top side. So once again, LS loves to call it Smork. Definitely this composition screams it to all of you as what will be the champion here for the side of Afreeca after seeing all this.
Big smile from Keen. You could see a Fiora here. You could understand Vayne, but it's probably just going to be a hover for fun. Could pull the trigger, and they will.
Oh.
They're doing it. It's even more risky than Fiora, but they're running Vayne top. But again, at least you understand why. You're like, we need to find matchups we need to get our guy the matchup, and they're putting Keen back on his faithful Vayne, this time not with Karma Shields and other utility outside of a bit of Braum help.
This time hard mode, but the enemies have a bit of a handicap. Kind of feels that way as so much engage on the side of Jin Air. As Vayne, very low range, you can kind of get caught out by that, but it is Keen on that champion. So excited to see if he can avoid all of that while also outputting damage.
They're going to play a 4-1 comp, and if it has to be team fight, their team fight is Vayne Vlad Sivir. So they have awesome team fight as well, but they're pretty brittle in the grouping, and Dread is the one who takes the wrong end of the stick because he's on Sejuani rather than his usual style of Kayn and doing his best Ning impression and that sort of thing. He's a brawler, right? He's not a tank jungle player. So he's the one who's going to have to adjust mindset. Otherwise, they can win in the 1. There's a chance they outplay in the team fight. It's Vayne, the champion who can outplay anything. She gets the Aatrox matchup, and See how much help is required to get Linderung through this comfortably.
Really looking for Jin Air to show up tonight up against a weaker opponent and see if they can actually take a win and stop the 17 games in a row that they're currently on.
And ask a simple question and get an answer. Who has the simpler to execute comp before level 18? You'd say Jin Air, right? It needs a lot of items that should be hard to come by on Vlad, Sivir, and Vayne to change things. So that Glad Plane that we haven't seen in forever, the APB that hasn't been answered, the unrequited love for the big smile, maybe today's the day.
See if it does work out as we hop into game number 1 now.
Almost feel like we should have been cheering for Jin Air there.
I know.
It was sad, Valdez.
That was kind of sad.
I mean, they have lost 17 times in a row.
But even the last time I cast them, it wasn't that quiet.
No. It's worrying times for Jin Air Greenwings so far. But here's the roster today. Linderung, Seas, Grace, Root, and Nova. If you're joining us late, they are changing things up. No Marung for game number 1. And they've got really awesome CC in all lanes. So the moment that Seas hits level 2, honestly, Seas' level 1 goal should be, I don't want them to know where I started on the Rift, because after that, from there on, he's kind of golden to find pretty good lanes to impact, and at worst, blow some flashes. If not, blow some health bars up and get some kills going for Jin Air Greenwings.
First pick here for Root on the Tristana.
This is just a Root graphic for Jin Air.
I'm not gonna mention anything else, so you guys can see it yourself.
But you can be glass half empty and be like, first time on the Rift, Tristana and losers. Is one way you could read that one and not be too far off.
Hey, at least he hasn't lost on the pick, right?
Keen is undefeated on Vayne.
There
and
you
he
go.
hard carried that game.
So's Brook on Vlad, undefeated.
Yeah. You're really... We're going for what we can find, guys.
Yeah, I mean, Root's undefeated on Tristana.
True.
It's definitely big.
Nova started W. That's kind of strange. Start on Gather. Usually just take Q and push with your AD carry. Probably not going to matter too much. Tristana pushing up here. As here's Seas. We mentioned from level 2. That is, in fact, the level.
Talk about the W. Here it is. Comboing it onto Soul, who is going to flash away, but the heal comes through. And the electrocute alongside the E of Tristana means that first blood goes to the side of Jin Air.
You remember when we sat here and said, isn't it weird he started with Taunt?
Yeah.
You would think that would hit the mind of Soul, but unfortunately, he walks up and gets Flag and Dragon died. So that's, you know what? The puzzle didn't end up being too puzzling, and yet, unfortunately, Jin Air get the kill there. If you're an Afreeca fan, a very avoidable death for Soul.
You know, we mentioned it before. Maybe a better team
look at this.
would have been able to say, hey, this is definitely possible. Why did he take W? Hey, guys, be careful. Place down a ward. But Afreeca didn't do that. And that means that they are going to pay the price early on, as Soul is going to be behind the 8 ball to start off.
People are going to take W level 1 and solo queue and be very sad about Galio's lane presence. Remember Galio on a 8-match losing streak in the LCK, and yet it worked out. So that's sometimes all that matters. Jin Air don't care about analysis. They're just about getting something in the W column. Nicely executed by Nova. There wasn't too much time for Soul to sidestep there, but again, it's the timing at which this happens that should be obvious. Here's the Jin Air reaction. To their credit, it's just the golf claps. No one is falling over. Yeah. Man, Tana's pretty happy, though. Bless his heart.
You gotta...
Coach Han is like, I've seen this before.
Yeah, I know. So many games with Malrong coming out. Gotta feel bad for him. You know, Malrong coming in and gets first blood, and then eventually nothing happens. But you can see the top lane is going well for the side of Afreeca, as Vayne is pretty good against the Aatrox early on in the game.
Kind of at all points, unless Aatrox can get his first Q to hit the enemy champion. It's very, very hard to get the chains to arm. Of course, Tumble is going to be a very big answer to you. There's not really any light at the end of the tunnel in the 1, but everybody else initiates, and he can initiate too, or at least join in and pile on, and that's going to be the more useful thing. It's one of those things where, you know, Afreeca could still win this game. We could be looking back at a 1 game by Afreeca just because Jin Air doesn't know how to close games because they've only won 1 game all season, and then Vladimir, Sivir, and Vayne show up at a fight or show up at a bar and there is no counter. So there is still light at the end of the tunnel, but let's celebrate every good Jin Air moment, even when it comes to moments. They have been few and far between, and see Grace on the first on the roam as well. They're trying to make something happen. They at least look like they're up for the game today, and we haven't been able to say that about all the best-of series they've played this season.
Yeah. One thing I've been noticing about Aatrox, by the way, he does miss that cannon, as it's just too much pressure from the Vayne, but he used to have so much more threat with the extra E in his combination and what he could do in the lane before the change, but nowadays you see so many Aatrox in hard lanes just use the first Q and then just waste the other two in thin air, just trying to get back to the long-range Q so that they can actually farm. It's definitely a far cry away from what Aatrox used to be.
It's nice to see ordered play here around the Aatrox. We already noted him giving up cannon minion purely from 1v1 pressure. He gets a bit of jungle pressure to say, well, my jungler might be there. You can't walk up and harass me as I take this minion wave. So stops him being dived or anything crazy like that. So I like to see some fundamentals. That's another area that Jin for sure have fallen away on. I want to give a little teaching point for you Vayne top lane players at home. The first teaching point is please stop playing it in my games. But the second point, the more important one, there's a lot of Vayne top in Korean solo queue, is go for the secondary tree we saw here. Again, it's Taste the Blood, Ravenous Hunter. Obviously in melee matchups in the top lane, you're going to proc Taste the Blood quite frequently with your Tumble. But the Ravenous Hunter is actually really relevant on Vayne. And this is something that applies to Conqueror. This is something that applies to a lot of on-hit effects. You do get the Ravenous Hunter healing from the ability you max first, which of course now is the Silver Bolts. The true damage does have Ravenous Hunter interaction. So because of that, you are getting sustained for the 1v1. That helps you with your laning phase. You definitely want to go into domination second when you play the Vayne.
Yeah, definitely is true. As Infernal Drake here on the side of Jin Air, and it doesn't look like Afreeca are even going to just even get near it. As Jin Air, once again, big win to them, going to take a very impressive first Drake. As you know, when a team loses 17 times in a row, sometimes the little things you really got to praise them for. After that early game pressure in the bottom side, they roll that into an Infernal, and the next Drake will be Infernal as well. So we'll see how that one goes as in goes Grace. They're trying to get the ult down, and they will, perfectly timed as well. And nicely done by Grace and Seas to pick up that kill.
Even better than your first appearance, because you remember this is Cleanse Vlad, the least interactive Vlad summoner ever, and he still dies because they layer their CC so well. So really nicely done by Jin Air. There's a dumb, goofy joke about no one beats Jin Air Greenwings 18 times in a row, and you know what? They're happy to have anything positive, any funny memes where they're not falling behind us. Here we go!
As the support has Cleanse, but Soul doesn't have Cleanse, as Root gets in there. And Root and Nova make it happen. What's going on, guys? Jin Air off to a fantastic start, better than any other game that I can remember this split.
Jin Air Greenwings finding new life. Look at this, in the 2v2 even, they make it work. Let's go back to this play. Brook goes for a very lazy back timing. Sejuani has gone over the wall, he's not coming back. And he just straight up dies. Awful from the mid laner, but this is what we saw from Brook in that Lissandra versus Syndra matchup. He's not a mid laner, he's role swapping. And I was ultra frustrated by that fact. It was like, okay, Keen will get his matchup. And while he does, around Keen, they're getting dumpstered in the 2v2 and the 1v1.
Stay calm, stay calm. Don't get too excited. So, a lot of fast talk in there at the end that I miss, but G-Sun, thank you for tuning us in. That's really important to understand their mindset after these couple of kills that they pick up early, because Jin Air, this is very uncommon for them to be in this kind of position. But now you can see that they're on the right kind of mindset of, hey guys, let's not get too out of hand. We're ahead, but we haven't won yet.
And I don't remember them being ahead in 2 lanes at once. They've had some good Mauron camps in a lane. They've got one person ahead, but they're getting 2v2 kills while they're killing in the mid lane. That's something new from the side of Jin Air. So this is shaping up to be a must-watch match. A year ago, one of the most famous matches of all time was that Jin Air match, right? Jin Air against SKT, the 94 minutes of the dream. That was an I was here moment for the chat. You might be here for Jin Air stopping the extension of, right now, the equal longest losing streak of all time. Already mentioned it a couple of times. Look, for CJ Enter's summer was 17 losses in a row. And they've got that easy to execute comp. That's why there should be confidence. They're winning in multiple lanes, and their comp hits their items earlier because they've got the gold in the early game. And then there's a lot of reliable buttons to press to force things. So short of some crazy things falling apart, Jin-Air Greenwings are definitely the favorites so far for me in game number 1.
Yeah, it's crazy to say. Doesn't happen very often. And there's definitely, there's a bunch of you out there in the chat that you were like, oh, it's super late. I should probably go to bed.
What if you missed this?
It's a Jin-Air series, right? I can just go to sleep. They're just going to lose 0-2, right? Well, you might be wrong, as a bunch of you stayed around and said, wait, maybe this is the time. Maybe this is the chance for Jin-Air to finally win and stop the streak.
And you know what? We're confident. There's definitely a way Jin-Air loses this game.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
that part is clear. But don't you want to know if it was an epic throw or if Jin-Air actually finally won a game? How will Afreeca bounce back? Is Yukal ready to go on the back? We're not actually 100% clear. I didn't see him today, but I would imagine he's here. So you got to wonder. The comms we heard already from Jin-Air, right? Lots of steadying of, well, we've done this before. We've had some good moments. Don't get too overconfident. How are the comms on the side of Afreeca, and who's leading them?
Yeah.
Because now they have even less experience than before. Soul, I guess, is by far the most experienced player on their roster. Remember, Jelly's not playing. So they have 17-year-old Sennen. They have Brook, who's played now, what, 4 or 5 professional games, 1 on Hanwha Live. Dread and Keen is up there as the second most experienced, so there's just no guarantees on either side. I feel like anything could happen here. We could pierce through the rift and go through some amazing color transformations like in that LPL Series Game 2 yesterday when the colors bugged out. Anything could happen in game number 1.
Well, something that has happened is a Tristana with Berserker Greaves and an Infinity Edge at 10:50. That was the timing. Already has 1 Infernal Drake. Could pick up a second here for the side of Jin-Air. It's coming up in 10 seconds. It kind of feels like, though, watching the mini-map that Jin-Air don't want to give up a Rift Herald and maybe even try to take the Infernal at the same time. Let's see if Afreeca can try to stop that.
A 2-for-1 for Jin-Air? I thought they ran out of coupons this season, Valdez, but they look to be going for that, and you're right. Nova just walks up, says, hey, I'm Galio, and they can't walk past him. Root in the 1v2 is Root got his summoners up, and he is Tristana. And I can hear Dongjun, our Korean analyst, just dumbfounded. So that might have been Cloud Temple, just dumbfounded by just how solid a play this is from the side of Jin-Air. Afreeca don't have a smash and grab comp. They have greedy scaling in bot, greedy scaling in top, greedy scaling in mid. And it's just being easily overrun. And all they have to show for it is Keen getting a nice CS lead. Was it worth it? You know, it feels like almost we're getting some of those feels out there, but what was the cost of getting Keen Vayne top? And will we know the answer to that till after the game is over?
It's definitely a big question. I'm sure that the side of Afreeca is feeling pretty disappointed after seeing all the other teams just dumpster Jin-Air, and then your team comes in, and it's like, well, this isn't exactly what we wanted. I wonder how Keen feels as well. He is the epitome of a super strong player on a team that's struggling everybody else all around him, as Jin-Air were going for the Rift Herald, but
Root's grouping.
Stopped it.
Does not want this Rift Herald to go down. Notice that Root, because you're Tristana, has access to a 1-item power spike on a champion who, when IE was meta, loved to get it early, right? Because you can get those reset kills, because you can have solo kill potential. You have a lot of trade damage. When IE wasn't a viable rush, you had to go kind of weird builds. To me, there was no more depressing time for Tristana mains when you went Blade, Rage Blade as Tristana.
yeah.
With how she works as a champ. Speaking of how champs work.
Ooh, trying to lock down Dread. The flash in from Grace as well. Gonna be locked down. He doesn't have flash anymore. And Dread is gonna go down here. The flash in from Linderong, trying to get on top of Keen. As Keen not quite able to get that auto onto C's. Linderong, it looked like he thought he had his 3rd Q, but his 2nd Q was there and he missed that one for the knockup. So unfortunately the flash not effective, but they do get the 1 kill onto Sejuani at least.
Ended up being 1 extra summoner blown, but a kill claimed by the side of Jin. They do claim the piggy. We talked about how Dread was the biggest loser of this draft because he's an aggressive jungler who plays things super aggressively, having to play a coverage game. There's no good lanes to gank because you're behind in tempo and you have scaling champions in your lanes. Yes, Vayne is the only one with lane presence, but Jin-Air was always going to outnumber. Keen couldn't get the auto attack onto Jarvan. My impression is it wouldn't have killed. He doesn't have any critical strike to get a big enough auto attack out there. Jin-Air can back away. They give red buff to Root. And Root, who to me has been the real unsung hero. Like, he looks like He's doing his best Teddy impression on this team. I know a lot of people would have said Malrang earlier in the season. I could have understood that, but Root has had good games on a lot of different champions, both awesome dudes and standard 80 carries. He's now got a lot of items. He's got a big CS lead over the Sivir. Things just coming together. Remember, ease of execution advantage, big on the side of Jin Air.
And a fantastic early games with some fortunate Drakes as well means that it's looking even better than we could have imagined. I mean, we're still looking at double Infernal for a Tristana that has a massive lead. As Keen is trying a hard carry here. He wants to get on top of Linderong, and he is going to get that kill, but will trade his life for it, which is not necessarily a win.
Nope. And Grace will pick up the minion wave and push it in, so only Vladimir gets a map position advantage. Now, this is level 8 Jarvan and a Galio, so let's not go too far on this. C's got too excited.
You almost said Glad Plane as you were saying Galio. You're getting ahead of yourself.
I was actually going to say Gladio.
Gladio?
So
it's because your mind was thinking about Glad Plane.
I mean, how could you not have your mind on the Glad Plane? Everything has gone better for Jin Air than maybe any of their games. I can't even remember the Gen G Game 2 they won, what it looked like at 15 minutes. So yeah, we'll just assume that this is right up there with that game. Things are falling into place. The enemy has a lot of carries, and they do have backline access with Vladimir unable to be kited, especially with a Sivir ult, but they really are really far behind. It's hard to have the right adjectives here. I don't want to just use words for the sake of it. And watch the replay here. He takes turret aggro the first time, takes turret aggro the second time. He doesn't have vision bot side, and the teleport, of course, means he can't go that way. So he ends up kiting top side, and, well, in the best case scenario, he gets one turret shot less and lives. In this case, he dies. So nicely done, all right. And how about a bit more gold? 2,100 gold lead for Tristana. That's what, 500 gold lead less than a Zeal item.
I mean, I've had games where, you know, be it really far behind, but it lasts like 28 minutes, right? And I end the game with about 8,000 gold. He almost has 8,000 gold. We're at 16 minutes into the game as he's taken down almost all the plates in the bottom side, gets the first blood turret as well as 2 kills. He's popping off in a big way, so Root, he's been trying to carry his team for a long time. I saw some stat before where he's actually pretty high up in terms of 80 carry damage percentage and stuff like that, but maybe this is finally his chance to show off his stuff, as Tristana Galio actually looks pretty decent when you get an early game.
And the LCK gods are saying, yes, we would like Jin Air to win. Look at this, double Infernal into Mountain. The Drakes are high value as well. So everything is coming together, and only the dreaded S word of scaling can really count on the side of Afreeca. And it's the sort of S word that can be dismissed most of the time, because just how do you get all 3 members of Afreeca to 3 items? Dread's going to skip out, but he's got no escape plan.
Yeah, he's got Grace on the other side here, and that's just going to be Dread once again. Caught out on the Sejuani, and with no jungler, that means another free Drake to the side of Jin Air, who are actually beginning to dominate here in this game up against Afreeca.
These are the scenarios where scaling doesn't matter. When you've been greedy in the amount of champions that need to scale, and when the enemy has a scaling champion who's ahead in the Tristana. I mean, so unlikely that there's going to be less than an item and a half lead for Tristana, and thus the scaling could be irrelevant. So everything's stacking up. The Mountain's taken down. It's not quite an Infernal, but no 4th spawn Oceans in this game. 18 minutes in, the Ambition signature is in the pit of very high-value Drakes. Astred, he's the one who looks like a fish out of water. Even more so maybe than Brook in the mid lane, because he keeps jungling like his lanes are winning. And if you just tell me you're jungling against Jin Air, you assume that. But it's not the case in this game. His lanes are behind, and he's trying to walk around, and it's being feasted on. It feels like it's open season on piggies. As Root's dead.
Well, that's you know, more of what we were expecting, but we're gonna have to see how that fight actually started, and it could mean some big things here actually, because Afreeca could pick up this Rift Herald and try to roll that into a turret and try to get that scaling underway.
Now, 2 ults, 3 ults used here, but I don't think Jin Air, with Root being the one who went down. Anyone else down, maybe you try it. This is probably too bold. Rift Herald won't be able to get a huge gold injection with the plates being down for multiple minutes now. But yes, it is killing an objective, so that's kind of the first good moment for Afreeca. 19 minutes into the game, they were able to get a 1-2 punch onto their enemy. We need to see the replay to understand why Root was chilling in the mid lane, and we're going to get it. you know, he's playing single player because Afreeca have just waved the white flag for the longest time. Who actually catches it? Ah, nice angle from Dread there. Sejuani ult comes in from a nice angle. Well played. That's a really nice kill to the side of Afreeca.
Yeah, Dread finally making that Sejuani pick work for his team, as means Root wasn't even that far up the lane, and he is Tristana, so you can understand how he gets caught out there. Dread doesn't have his ult back, so this isn't going to work, but perhaps looking for a lane that he can use the Rift Herald in.
Vayne's looking for more items. Even in that game, the top lane Vayne won. It took a while for the 2 items to come in, and CS-wise, he is farming himself up the Rage Blade. And remember that Jin Air, at their core, is a pile-on teamfighting comp. What if you miss those ults, and then Vayne starts hitting with the Rage Blade fully stacked? Well, then maybe there is a fight still that Afreeca can win. So, finally, after the first good moment from Afreeca, you wonder, you dare to dream if you're an Afreeca Freecs fan. Still, we're going to focus on Jin Air. The glass is still half full for them, but there are objectives being traded rather than just being straight-up wins for the side of Jin Air Greenwings.
You can see what they do. They send the Rift Herald down into the lane that Keen is split pushing, so he can have even more pressure down there. Picks that one up. Knows that Aatrox can't necessarily challenge him. As Grace trying to do his own kind of split pushing in the top side, but Brook does make his way up. As still good things for Tristana that does have 2 items plus a Crick Glove. Is going to be trying to take out his own turret in the mid lane.
See Dread try the same play. One thing I want to talk about to direct the viewers' attention to is it's 1,300, 1,500 gold. It's not a match-winning goldie. The double Infernal, though, of course, does mean that's a little bit misleading. But when it comes to what you're seeing on screen, in the Tristana grouping, feel really good about Jin Air. They're very powerful in the 3. But in the 1v1 side lanes, it's free-farmed Vayne into a matchup where she's very comfortable. And it's cleanse Vladimir against Alessandra, who can only push in waves for Vladimir to hoover up at almost 40% CDR. So actually in the side lanes, it's very hard for Jin Air to get more than they already have now. So a lot of the easy gold lead is kind of gone. So we have to evaluate Jin Air's performance on how they play around what is unanswerable, which is how strong Tristana is at the present. So that's kind of the creeping doubt here, is whatever the lane assignment, you're not going to burst Keen down. No QSS in the build just yet from Keen, but that will come soon, you would imagine. And this means there is a chance the game stalls out, and that dirty S word actually becomes relevant.
Speaking of AD carries that do have a QSS, immediately once Root got enough gold for that, he goes back home, picks up his own. And that means that that play that we saw earlier on with the Sejuani ultimate can't happen a second time. There's no one else on the side of Afreeca that has that kind of hard CC that's that reliable. Of course, you do have Brawl, but much harder to hit a Tristana with his ultimate.
But if you're not spreading your lead with Aatrox or Lissandra threatening a dive, how is this current scenario working out? Tristana clears, Jarvan and Galio say hi, and then Sivir throws a Q and a W and the wave dies. Such a Sivir, right? So far we're delaying. So far, there's things to worry about. So for another team with, you know, macro that we can fully appreciate and great ward coverage from mid-game when they're ahead, you'd like Jin Air's position, but for now, if I see Tristana pushing minions into Sivir, I get worried.
Does go back to the idea that Jin Air, once again, they do not have a lot of experience winning and closing out games, so will they know how to when the time comes, when they are actually ahead once again? And you know, a couple of mistakes here and there and some game states, and they might find themselves in a position where they're struggling to really figure out what is our next move.
So what we should do to kind of problem solve that, is finally Root will get an auto or 2 in, is look at the minimap. And the minimap shows where Jin Air is missing out. They have not put down the control wars that Jarvan has. Galio has some as well. And actually, there's a pretty good defensive line here. It's incomplete, but there isn't a lot of threat when it comes to the red side or the blue side jungle. There's one control ward down aggressively, but it's not leading to anything. The mini-map doesn't look like a team that's pretty far ahead. The gold lead also starting not to look that way. And the scaling champions are just inevitably, with it being a 40,000 gold game, getting closer and closer to being online. If we hit 50,000 gold for Jin Air and 48,000 for Afreeca, it might be a bigger number than it is now, but Afreeca will eventually use gold better than Jin Air can, just because of the champions they have. So Jin Air need to control areas and force Afreeca into mistakes. They could also try some creative ganks.
Well, this is one way to do it. Pool is down, but he does have a stopwatch. Root takes a bunch of damage, and well, Brook is going to get away for now. Tries to flash in to get that kill with this empowered Q, but that does not work. And meanwhile, underneath the turret, looks like a dive did fail here, and Soul's going to go down. What the hell is happening as Grace going to make his way in too? One more auto might do it, and there it is, another kill. Goes the way of Jin Air, and all of a sudden, the avalanche starts.
Well, it turns out everyone can make mistakes, and Afreeca's not a top team, so they actually trade back. And they might actually lose a Baron from this. They're going to lose Baron vision. Nova doesn't sweep. They don't know about the enemy vision.
Observer's
won't
getting
know.
excited. He's got the angle as well. He's like, it's actually happening.
I mean, isn't this the angle to watch Jin Air from Afreeca from? A little bit off-center, a little bit crazy. We're watching it here. Vayne knows, but can't do anything about it. And Jin Air get the Baron because the throws are thick and fast from both teams. We're going to start topside. When you don't put your vision down, you have to get a bit scared if you're Jin Air. And they do. Root's looking for a turret dive. That shouldn't be the Tristana way, but it's what happens. They messed this one up in execution, but the Redemption arms, so the kill doesn't come down. They're eventually going to take it, but it's weird and wonderful to pick up that kill. Afreeca feel pressured because of how many members went topside, and they try to force something. Dread rolls in, and what a escape there from Grace.
Wow.
He actually jukes away from that Sejuani ultimate, a power play, a super play that we missed in live, and then Soul messes up the turret diving. The frozen throw comes through, and all because they tanked an extra turret shot, all the dominoes stacked from Grace.
Let's go to Baron.
Nice
Kill him and go Baron. Nice.
What's Jin Air's reaction here? Are they feeling it?
Coach has actually got a tiny little smirk on his face, finally.
Coach
It's been a while.
Han is the most unmovable man. After the 17 losses in a row, that part I understand. What a super play from Grace to get through. The Sejuani ultimate there. It's the only reason they got that extra damage onto the 3 and allowed the frozen thralls to finish off their work, and now they have a Baron. Could this be the way that Jin Air find their first victory? It'd be pretty fitting. It's really hard to recreate.
Well, I mean, if they do get this one, it means they'll only be tied for the longest losing streak, and it's a great sign, right? You know, Afreeca also struggling.
It's time for some chat participation, some caster participation. Is this the time? Is the Glad Plane coming out for game number 1, Valdez? Yeah. And I asked the same Twitch chat, I want to see Glad Plane or Sad Plane spammed in the chat. I'll find it in the VOD afterwards, but this is the time to decide. You know, in a really good spot.
I'll go ahead and throw my own Glad Plane in there, as this is looking pretty good. I'll, throw my chips on the table on this one, as every single lane is being decimated right now with the Baron. It's a huge power play, 4,000 gold already, Papa.
All Afreeca have is the thought of later. They haven't reached that 50,000 gold number. They need to find a really amazing approach. The last one from Dread cost them. Pushing in 3 waves. Aatrox taking down Vlad's turret solo. That's a good sign for the side of Jin Air. Can they break the base in multiple spots? And remember, they only have 1 more minion wave. They need to go now to get those inhibitor turrets.
Grace, after a play like that, must feel pretty untouchable. And, well, I thought he was actually going to go in there, but not this time around. They're going to take it slower than usual.
A good adjustment. They send Vayne top, they pull Vlad bot, and now Aatrox can't actually hit the turret at all. So they have not yet got any inhibitors down. They should get the 3rd turret, though. Root is so strong.
He's pretty unbelievable right now, and just threatening can do it, but Root does have that QSS. But Galio, not as tanky as you'd like, and take a look at Keen in the front line. Already going to take out one, gets the World Ender to stop here, and does push Jin Air back, which means that no inhibitors, in fact, will be taken on the Baron push.
Could have been worse. All the people spamming Glad Plane, suddenly they had ties. They'd be trying to pull them a little bit less tight. They're worried now. You see the replay, and we already described what a 1-team fight from Afreeca looks like. What if your Wombo engage doesn't hit its mark, and then Rage Blade stacks are stacked up? Root actually only got into ult range kind of towards the end there, so he didn't have his wits around him or the ability to just repel the Vayne earlier. He's got those 2 items, and we all know in solo queue, if you make the wrong fight and the Rage Blade and Blade the Ruin King is done, you can definitely lose. So there's the first worry for the side of Jin Air. It's not over yet, but is that the moment either way?
Yeah, it still is very scary. You always have to respect a Vayne, and it's not only her, it's the other scaling champions you mentioned, the Vlad, the Sivir, eventually could come up, and, well, they make a 6th Drake spawn. It's going to be Infernal. There you go.
The one time when LS would have been like, why don't we delay this to 30 minutes so we get a 35? It is the Infernal, the very unlikely Infernal,
Yeah.
statistically improbable. There was only one possible future, whereas Infernal, whereas there were 2 of Mountain Drake and 1 of the Cloud Drake when it came to the final spawn. So they get the high roll, Jin Air. They need every little bit of help they can get to Jin Air Greenwings, and they deserve it. They've lost 17 times in a row, but if they get 2 members down, maybe they can just end this game without a full ace.
Going to be grouping up as 5 now, and Keen has to be careful. That range on the side of Tristan is going to be huge, and they're going in, trying to dunk him, but Zenon with the big time. The stopwatch. Take a look at Keen up in the top side. He takes out 1, trying to go to the back line here, sees, but he's also going to go down, and Brook is doing his job of zoning out the rest, but in comes
going in!
He's coming in there, gets a double kill. They're going to take out the inhibitor.
This might be
it. He's still in the pool. He's got to come out and stop this madness.
It's only a tank and Keen. What can Keen do?
Root gets pretty low, but the ultimate gets Keen out of range here. Dread going to flash away, but it's not going to be enough. And it looks like Keen, who is alone, is not going to be able to do it. And Jin Air finally is going to win and stop the 17 games. Will not lose an 18th time in a row.
These are feelings these players have felt so rarely. The respawns are coming in, but I don't think it's going to be another. I think Jin Air's done it.
Wow, Braum not able to do it. We get the rotation as finally we have Jin Air win another game here. Their 2nd of the Spring Split 2019 will go the way of Jin Air.
How often does game 1 of a best of 1 feel like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders? It's still a series. They're not done, Valdez, but they've been able to stop extending that losing streak to 18. They will not lose an entire LCS or LEC split in a row. Some of these players have only ever won a single best of 1 in the LCK, and Root wins his 2nd. He doubles his lead. The Korean casters are hype. We are as well. There's still a best of 3 to play out, but an important milestone has been reached. No one beats Jin Air Greenwings 18 times in a row.
They were right on the edge. That's what it took for them to finally stand up to their opponents.
Everyone did their help. We were caster cursing. The RNG Drakes were the highest roll ever. Everyone was there in the Jin Air corner. And the Afreeca fans are probably a bit annoyed about the starting lineup, so they're probably going to get over this loss, but that doesn't mean the series is over. There's a lot of subs that could be made on the side of Afreeca, and there's a lot of series to be played. But that's a game win. What about a series win for Jin Air?
It would be their first of spring 2019 for sure. As, wow, I got pretty hyped for that one. I wasn't expecting this to happen. As, you know, it started off with a great gank, and then you have to say their macro was also pretty good, right? They send the Galio top, stop the Rift Herald to get the Infernal. Then they try to take that kind of objective. Overall, it was good play over the course of the entire game. You know, a couple of mistakes, but not necessarily ones that were avoidable, and you really got to hand it to them. They actually just straight up beat Afreeca.
You just see the difference with actually finding 2 lanes in a good spot. Brooks, rookie status, got him caught in mid as a 2v2 kill happened bottom, and that's where people should have started to believe. Look at this gold lead, the fact that it never really extended outside the Elder Drake, so the Infernal Drakes that were coming in, and then boom shakalaka, straight up in the air. That was the bye-bye-bye moment for Jin Air Greenwings, and while the Glad Plane isn't tweeted based on a best-of-1 win, the players must be feeling so relieved.
It's one step closer.